And I remember just like walking up to the list and just like rolling my finger down it, and it was like The Cowardly Lion, Mike Doyle, and I was just fucking beside myself.
You're alone again. I shouldn't be thinking of you, thinking of me. I know.
Greetings, everyone. This is Mike, and this is the Daily Bread podcast, the weekly bread. And today I'm going to talk about my middle school days. And I have a list that I've talked about before about topics I've written down about things I was like, oh, maybe I'll talk about these things. And I'll just be out and about and randomly think about something and say, oh, maybe I'll talk about that. This seems to be pretty obscure or niche or self-reflective. So last week I talked about a friend of mine that I dicked over, and I think that at like anybody, their high school days or their middle school days, any of the days before they graduated from high school were either I don't know if they were great for anybody unless you were in back in the day, your perception of the popular kids were that they had the fucking life, and if you weren't in that crowd, then it was shit. Well, also like kind of like what I grew up to believe because of all the movies that were around me. If it was like you were popular, you got all the stuff, and if you weren't, then you had all of this the baggage stuff. And I think that one of the reasons why I am kind of like the way I am today, where I just really, I don't know, like just kind of, it sounds stupid, but just like walk my own walk, I guess. I don't know, that sounds really kind of lame, but why I don't really subscribe to a lot of the group mindset about shit is that I just see that it's someone had an idea and they sold it to a large scale of people that bought into it, and then they just were like, "Well, this is reality," and I hate that. I hate that term. I hate when someone's like, "I'm just being realistic." I'm like, "Well, no, your realistic is different than someone who's living in a jungle or climbing Mount Everest at this very moment, or living on a beach surfing all the time, or living in fucking Syria." It's like being realistic is just based on your perspective. There's no blanket statement that is like I'm just being realistic. It's like no, there's not a real way to globally have that be the like a defined statement like math. 2 plus 2 is 4, unless you're an idiot and you think that's a conspiracy. Um, but today, like talking about my middle school days, it kind of brings me, I think it connects pretty well from what I just said, where I grew up thinking that realistic was, oh, this is a define a def, definite, infinite, finite statement. Um, this is what it is. Like this is the everyone is in agreement that this is the thing, and popularity is the thing, and you I don't know, like all the shit that TV would tell me because I grew up basically just watching like hours on hours every day about with TV. And so going into my middle school, I had broken my leg when I was 4 years or in fourth grade, and then I gained a bunch of weight. So prior to that, I was like a pretty thin kid. And then I broke my leg and I vegged out for 8 weeks on a couch during the summer, and I wasn't active. So I just ate and just gained weight. And I don't know what I weighed, but I was about 5'3". I was like a tiny kid. So I gained weight, went into my eighth grade year being chubby. No, I'm sorry. This is going into my sixth grade year being chubby. And that continued until I was about a sophomore in high school. And I talked about like being a fat kid in another episode, but I think going through middle school, I wasn't really figuring out where I fit and where I belonged, and like being overweight kind of I wasn't like extremely overweight, but it just being embarrassed to take my shirt off at a pool party or anything like that or around friends. That definitely didn't help that I was trying to find my place or be accepted by people because if you don't look a certain way or you don't sound a certain way, then kids are just fucking cruel. And my sixth grade year, I didn't like have a group that I fit in with. I always liked people and I can always be friendly with anybody. And I think that became like nowadays I try my best to be friendly to pretty much everybody. I always try to find something where I can connect with them where they like feel comfortable because I know what it was like to not feel comfortable. Like not feel accepted or welcomed or out of place or like no one wanted to talk to me. And it was because of those days. And this is like, I just remember like, and that was like the time too. My parents were getting divorced, so that was a hard thing to go through. Cause I had like a skewed relationship with my dad because he had been dating someone, and it was like I kind of got left to the side, uh, and like not forgotten, but just not. There wasn't a lot of effort put into paying attention to me. And then, so like through those sixth, seventh, and eighth grade years, I was just chubby kid, had some issues with my dad. Um, didn't really have a place, and like I didn't really feel like I fit in anywhere, and I was trying really hard. And that's when I got into plays. Someone asked me last night, and they said I had mentioned I was in plays, and they we're talking more about it, and it's like, yeah, I was in the Wizard of Oz, and they're like, oh, what were you? And I said I was the Lion, and they said, well, what got you in wanting to be in plays? And I was like, well, I saw a buddy of mine. My mom took me one summer. I think it was I think it was sixth grade year, and my mom. There was the summer they had the town would do a play, and they would do it at the high school. So my mom took me to this play, and she's like, oh, we're gonna go see this play, Oliver. And I was like, oh God, okay. And I had not, the only thing I think I'd seen before this was the Nutcracker Ballet in the city. I can't really pinpoint the time periods, but I just wasn't, my eyes hadn't been open to plays. And so my mom took me to this, and the play started, and my buddy Scott, he was the lead character, Oliver, and I didn't know that until we got there. I was like, oh, it's Scotty, he's the main guy. And I was just enthralled by this play. I don't know what it was. I couldn't stop watching. I was so excited about it. Like intermission, I was talking to my mom. I was like, "This is the greatest thing ever!" Like, "Oh my God, this is so exciting! I don't know what it is. Like the singing and then acting and all of it. I loved it." And and then I was like, "I want to fucking do that." I mean, obviously I didn't swear, but I really wanted to perform. I really wanted to be in front of people. And after seeing that play, I like went out and auditioned for any play that came up, and I got my first role was in this play called The Wizard Welcomes No One. But this local guy wrote a children's book that was turned into a play that we did it in. It was funny because we did it at my elementary school, so that's where we used the stage. And there was these three characters that were bad guys, so I was one of them. And I remember I had to do the audition. This is taking such a weird turn from where I really want to start, where I started this, but I think it definitely matches because of that time period. Um, because I was trying to find my footing and like where did I belong and what did I love and what did I pay attention to. And I remember having an audition for this, and this is the time where Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves came out with Kevin Costner, and there was that Brian Adams or Brian Adams, not Ryan Adams. Brian Adams had that song. Um, what the hell was that love song? Everything I do it's for you. And you had to audition for it, and I had never sang. And I think the only time I was in a play where I wasn't like I was in a play when I was in second grade, or first or second grade, and I was like Christopher Columbus. But that never I didn't care after that. I didn't want to be that until I didn't have that like excitement about it until later on, where I was talking about in this time period. And I had to get up and sing, and I remember practicing this. And I remember my cousin Shannon came over one time because my family lived up in Lynn, and they were down for a weekend. And this is where my dad lived up the street in his condo and I was living in Jefferson, so he was living in the Berkshire Ridge condos. And my family came to visit, and I used to love like I still love like hanging out with my family. But growing up, when we get to see our cousins, my cousins Shannon and Kelly, it was like the best fucking thing ever. And so they showed up, and we were hanging out. And I said, "Hey, I got this song I have to sing. Can I sing it for you?" And she was like, "Yeah." So we went downstairs because our rooms were downstairs, and we like closed the door. And I was like, "All right." And I was so nervous. I totally forgot about this. And I'm like, "All right." I think I even said to her like, "Okay, like look the other direction or close your eyes or something." I was like, "Cause I'm gonna sing this, and I've never sung in front of somebody before." And I remember like just starting to do it. It was so embarrassing, but like freeing at the same time because it was just this such. I was so afraid to just sing a song without music in the background. And I sang the part that I was gonna sing for her. And I remember, I think I remember she was like, "Oh my God, that was really good." And it was one of those moments where it's like a milestone almost that the biggest thing that I was afraid of was that moment to sing. And then I'm like, all right, cool, now I can do this. And then I had to do it again, obviously in front of a room of people to audition for this fucking play. And I just walk up on stage as how old was I? 11, 12 or something like that. And I had to like go up on this high school or this elementary school stage, if you can envision that, that's completely just giant amount of space and you and then just bunch of people in front of you and there was no music and I just sang this part of this song and I mean I could still feel it's almost like everything went silent and I can imagine someone listening to this and being just like embarrassed for me or maybe they thought I was okay. But I know now that if I see something like this, I'm like, oh God, this is murder. And so, so I did that, and then I got the part in that play. I was one of the bad guys, and I just kept wanting to audition for plays like after that. And I was in Godspell, and then I was in The Wizard of Oz, which was the coolest thing because this kind of goes back to I guess a lot of things that I talk about. Like I'm a big fan of the law of attraction or universe and things like that. And I think you can manifest things if you truly want them. I can look back at any part of my life where my life shifted and went in a direction that like I just felt that I wanted that and it happened. And The Wizard of Oz came up and I think I wanted the part of the wizard. I think I went into it wanting the part of the wizard, but then they made me audition for the lion. And I wanted that role so badly because there was all these main parts. I mean, the wizard isn't really a main part because that's at the end. And the there's the Scarecrow, there's the Tin Man. I mean, I was gonna be Dorothy. Um, and I was like, well, the lion, like that is. I grew up watching this with my sister, and we like I knew King of the Forest and like the whole well the that was the same that was the Courage song. And like his first song where he sang, so I was like, this is so cool. And I remember auditioning for it, and I just kind of felt that I got it. And I think it was like a Friday, and they posted the list outside of, oh my God, what the fuck was her name? She was the director, Mrs. Start with an M, and no one listening to this is gonna know who the hell I'm talking about. Um, oh my God, what the fuck was her name? Well, they posted the list outside, and I remember it was a sunny day, and I'm walking up to it, and then the list outside of the spot outside of her door was the exit too to go outside. So the door was open because it was a beautiful day and it was sunny. And I remember just like walking up to the list and just like rolling my finger down it, and it was like Cowardly Lion, Mike Doyle, and I was just fucking beside myself. And I loved playing that character so much, and I think I definitely did talk about it in another episode, but this is kind of just extending on it or expanding on it. I'm sorry. But I loved that role so much, and I did a really good job. And people for years after were like, "You're the Cowardly Lion." I was like, "Yeah, that was me." And and that was like the thing that like, and I'll kind of stop at middle school because I did go into high school doing plays and things, and I never got a role that was that big. But that was kind of the thing that like helped me get through that time period. But and and now that I think about it, like I came into middle school because it was brand new. I mean, elementary school ends where you still have playtime to recess, and you're going into sixth grade and going, wait a minute, we don't have playtime? Like, what are you talking about? We don't have an hour to go outside or 45 minutes, whatever it was, to go outside and play. Like, how are we gonna do this? But then it was there's we our classes are all over the school, and we have different teachers, and they serve French fries at lunch, which really didn't help my fatness at that time. But it was just that extra step of, oh wow, I'm growing up a little bit more. This is more, I won't say responsibility, but we're getting more. We could do more things instead of staying in one classroom all day long with the same teacher like in elementary school. And we get to roam around and that sense of freedom started to get built in me. And I think that was the time where I started liking that. I was like, oh wait, I feel, even though I was going from one classroom to the next, like I can kind of, I don't know, just the stupid thing of, oh, I'm gonna go go down this hallway this time, or I'm gonna go outside, or I'm gonna like I'm feeling just a bit more free. And then the next step later on is getting your car, and then the world is just wide open. Um, and I think I just really like that. So I was trying to figure out where I fit, and then I started to recognize the things that I really loved, and I loved being and performing, and I loved the whole, I don't know, ethos is the right word about plays, or that whole community of it, or just that whole world of that. And so I started finding things I was passionate about, and that really helped me get through like middle school, like just doing that and getting on stage and feeling like I was somebody. So I felt like coming to middle school, I was nobody, and I left, and people were excited, like, oh my God, like you were like this lead role in your eighth grade year right before you're graduating. And it was just the coolest fucking thing. And then, but just through that time of having to grow up and deal with your parents getting divorced and having some real shit go down, and that's having your parents get divorced. I mean, that just gets anything innocent prior to that is like completely gone because you're like, wow, my family is now split and things are pretty intense. And yeah, and I think that stuff has carried with me to this day, especially like the just not feeling connected to anything, where I do find things to connect to. So I have any friends that I make, I really cherish that friendship because it's like I always wanted that back then. And then I think after that and getting into high school, which I'll talk about one day, I just saw all the bullshit that I was struggling with, like, oh, I have to be popular, I have to do this. It's like, no, I didn't. Those kids were fucking dicks, and I didn't like any of them. And the funny thing too is that even through my chubby stage of going through middle school, I had like one, two, three, maybe four or five girlfriends through that. And it was like the first time I had kissed any. Oh, yeah, I think it was five. Let's see. I actually named them. It's Carrie Edwards, and then it was Erica Ferrulo, um, Melinda DiAugustine. Melinda DiAugustine, I think, was the first girl I ever. No, Carrie Edwards was the first girl I ever kissed. And then Anne Savage in seventh grade. This is going in such a weird turn. She was the first girl I French kissed and in front of the buses. That was always super cool. I remember we did it one time because like you're saying goodbye to each other and you just start like making out. And then they get on the bus and everyone's watching you. And I remember I hated that so much that she like she would be outside waiting by the bus and I like just quickly stopped liking her. And she was also, I met her because she was in that first play that I ever did, and she was a grade older than me. And I remember like I hated doing the making out thing by the buses, so I would walk out of my one of the wings and see her at the bus, and I would just like wait for her to get on, and I'd go all the way around to the like through the hallways to my bus, so I didn't have to see her and do that anymore because it was just so awkward. And yep. And who else did I date seventh grade? I forget, but then eighth grade it was Alyssa Millman, and yeah. So I was quite the stud. I was quite the stud back then. Um, yeah, wow. So that was those are some formative years. If I had to go back and do them again, I'd be like, fuck no. If someone's, I'll give you $1 million to go back and live those time periods. Like as the same kid, but knowing what I know now, I would say no, because it was just brutal. I hated those 3 years. I was really depressed when I was in seventh grade, and oh God, I fucking hated it. But there were some key moments that were definitely for growth. And I think I'm just thinking about this too because I'm listening to the new Matthew McConaughey book, Green Lights, and he talks about these things that you have to go through that kind of give you these green lights and shit. And they made me think about this. So that was my ramble for today. Hope you enjoyed it. And if you were a chubby kid back in the day, hopefully that helped you grow and you're nicer to people. So go be nice to someone who might seem a little awkward. And yeah, that's it.